Hi, and welcome to The Grief Between Us. I'm Patti Merrill, chaplain and founder of The Waiting Place, a nonprofit grief center dedicated to creating space for honest conversations about loss, love, and the complicated journey of healing. I'm really grateful you're here. Whether you're grieving yourself, supporting someone you love, or simply wanting to better understand the human experience of loss, this podcast is a place where grief can be spoken about openly and listened to with compassion. So, wherever you are today, thank you for joining me. Let's begin. My guest today is Tricia, a bereaved mother who knows that grief doesn't end, it evolves. Tricia speaks about love and loss in a way that makes room for both the collapse and the courage. She's the founder of the 404 Foundation, a nonprofit that supports children and adolescents dealing with profound loss by providing personalized care, resources, and tools for healthy grief and community connection. She's deeply committed to grief support that feels human and rooted, community that holds you, not a space that pressures you to be fine. In this episode, we talk about the loneliness that can sneak in even years later, the body's need to rest, and the sacred work of being honest about pain without rushing to fix it. There truly are many reasons why I love Tricia, but one that I'll name here is this. Her faith is part of her anchoring, and she talks about prayer as a real-time way that she survives the hard moments. Tricia, I'm so grateful to have you join me here today. And I'm so grateful that our listeners can kind of sit in on this conversation. And I know that it's going to be time well spent for all of us. So thank you for being vulnerable.
Well, thank you for having me.
So if it's okay, I'd love to just kind of jump in right to the meat of all of this and talk about William. Tell us who William is and tell us what changed, what ruptured when he died.
Yeah, so William was a rising sophomore in high school, played football and baseball all around, just your good old teenage American boy. Um, he was the oldest grandchild of probably 13 kids, so he was a giver. Um, he just loved everyone, and it was obvious. I can't even like trying to describe him and put words into who he was as a person is a little yeah, there's not enough words to describe your child when especially when they're gone. But we lost him. There was an accident on July 2nd. He was at his little girlfriend's house and they were riding in a side by side and they reached down to pick up his hat as it was moving and the whole thing just fell on top of him. Um, we had
Mm.
text prior to that, and I told him, William, I'm coming to pick you up. And he said, okay. And by the time I had gotten there, within 4 minutes, the accident happened, and they were pulling that thing off of him. Um,
Mm.
so, yes, we had to start CPR, and we rushed to the hospital. And that was the worst day of my life. Just watching this grown man sit on top of my 15-year-old man child doing compression, I just fell to my knees and I don't even know that I prayed. I just fell to my knees, not knowing what to do. And the man who was driving the ambulance with us, he stopped and picked me up off the ground and he told me, we got him back. He's back. He's back. And so we spent the next 4 days in the hospital with him um, over the 4th of July holiday. And no signs or any signs of life after that. So we decided to donate his organs on the 6th of July. That was the hardest thing
Mm.
ever. Having to make that honor walk down a hospital hallway and see it lined with people there to pay respects for him, but and see familiar faces of women that I've worked with for years who knew William. Um, yeah, it was an experience I'll never forget, but, I was grateful to be able to be there with him for his last breath, and he took his last breath at 4:04 p.m. on July 6th. Walking out of that hospital, and I pray to God that I never have to walk through those doors again, but walking out, you feel this, like, I can't even describe it. You just feel alone. You feel like uh, there's no words for it. You just feel lost. And walking through my front door of my home that we've lived in for the past 15 years, I felt like a stranger. It was full of people, yet so lonely. Um, we have a very, very large family, my family. I'm the oldest of 5, and my husband is the middle of 5. So there's lots of nieces and lots of nephews and lots of sisters and brothers. So our house was constantly full of people. And for that, I'm thankful. And that's where we learned that we both grieve in different ways. He loves to be surrounded by people, whereas I am the kind of person who wants to be by myself and just process because it's a lot to process. So, yeah, he was just a beautiful, beautiful boy, inside and out. And he was 6'2", 210 pounds, and had a head full of hair that he was so proud of. But yeah, he was just the energy that surrounded that boy. Amazing.
Thank you for sharing that and helping me know who he is, um, what he brought to your family and to the community. It was a huge loss for sure. And that rupture, his death created this rupture that is irreparable, right? Not just
Hmm.
emotionally, but I hear in what you shared that there were, um, it changed things practically and
Hmm.
relationally. It changed your whole landscape of everything for
Hmm.
you. It makes me wonder, like, after my daughter died, everything was just destabilized for quite a while. And I wonder what that was like for you. What felt most destabilizing in those first early months, if you can remember? Or what
Yeah,
still does feel destabilized even?
E everything. It's like, when you bring home a new baby and all that newness, and you can remember just waking up in the middle of the night with them and going in there to nurse your baby, and everything was just new and fresh, and I can't describe this any other way than everything was new. It was a whole new world. Like, everything that I did, everything that I looked at, everything that I felt, everything changed. I feel like I spiritually, when we were sitting in the hospital, my husband and I, before we even got to even go up and see William, I told him, I was like, I think this is God telling me or showing me that I'm not in control. And that right there, I just knew at that moment that I'm not in control of anything in my life. He is in control of everything, and you just have to give it all up to God. In moments like these especially, I look back and I wonder, did I pray hard enough in that hospital for him? I should have been more of a go to church more before this happened, because trying to find somebody to speak on behalf of your child and at the services when you don't have a church family and all of that, like, it was just, there were things that came about that I just had no idea were even possible. And the life that you had is no longer, and you're just trying to build something new, and you don't even know if you're capable of building anything anymore.
I've I've recently talked to other people, and this idea came to me that, a door got slammed shut. You got pushed out of that room of what your life was like, that life you were living, and you got shoved out of that room, and the door was slammed shut behind you. And then you're just
Hmm.
standing in this hallway, and there's no other open doors. And it's so destabilizing, right? You're like, where am I even supposed to go now? What am I even supposed to
Hmm.
do? How do
Yeah,
you resolve that? How did you come out of the hallway? How did you find the next room to go into?
I think you're just in survival mode after all of that. You just keep going because you have no other choice but to keep moving. God still has you here for a reason. One of the things that we found in William's room when trying to go through all the things to get ready for his visitation and his funeral was his baseball hat. And under the bill of his hat, it had Proverbs 3, 5, 6. And I was blown away because, like, well, first of all, I had to look it up to see what that verse was. And when I read it, it lean not on your own understanding, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. And I thought to myself, this child, we never were active churchgoers. We went at Christmas. We went, every other month. It wasn't something that was every Sunday. We weren't very active. And for him to have put that in there, I felt like that was a sign from him, or just for me to know, like, it's not meant for you to understand, and just lean in on your faith. And that has been an anchor for me throughout this whole entire ordeal, is to just lean in on God. And yes, I will say I was angry with God. I was afraid to be angry with God, honestly. So afraid to be angry with God because I was afraid that if I was angry with him, he was going to take away my other child.
Mm,
Um, so there was a lot of different emotions, but most of it was fearing God. But then also when I saw that proverb 3, 5, 6 written on the bill of his hat, I was like, okay, William, I can do this. I can do this. And by the grace of God, we are sitting here right now, and we are still here because you're really forced to just survive after something like this.
yeah. Can I ask you a little bit more about this anger with God? I think a lot of people who go through grief, right, experience that, and they wrestle with this idea that it's not okay to be angry with God. And it sounds like you had a little bit of that wrestle. How did you resolve that? And what were the results of just letting that anger out towards God?
Yeah. Um, I say anger, and yes, it was anger at first, and then it turned into fear, and fear
Mhm.
of losing. If I was angry with him for too long, or if I was angry with him, he would take someone else that I loved. After the funeral and we laid William into the ground, I would go back to that cemetery every day, and I would just lay on the ground for hours next to him, because that was the place where I could physically be the closest to him, on this
Yeah.
side of heaven. And
Yeah.
laying on that ground, and just, I think it was just in shock and just numbness, but I did it every day probably for the first 2 years of him being gone. And it taught me how to be still. It taught me how to pray and talk to God. And that fear of,
Mm,
God, just slowly, it just disappeared. That anger disappeared because I was just able to sit back and just be still. Like, there is something in being still, and just having that time to meditate and clear your mind, and learning how to talk to God is just, it was one thing that, out of all of this loss with William, and there is still beauty in this world afterwards, and my relationship with God is so much stronger than it ever was before William passed away. When William was in the hospital, he was wearing a bracelet, and the bracelet was HWLF. And I had to Google that too, because I'd never seen it on his wrist before that day. And when I Googled it, it was he would love first. And that is in response to what would Jesus do? And I thought,
oh,
okay, boy, I hear you again. And so everything that I do now, because of those two things that he left me, I try to lean in on my faith and love everyone first. Doesn't matter who you are, what you're doing. It's always comes back to love. Everything always comes back to love.
that's so beautiful. So as you were talking about this fear disappearing and learning how to pray and enhancing and strengthening this relationship with God, your fear disappeared and and you start to name it, but I just want to be really clear. The fear disappeared, and what did it get replaced with? What replaced that fear for you?
It got replaced with I don't even wanna say strength, but just a peace, if that makes sense. It was just an overall
Yeah.
peace in knowing that this is all temporary down here, and that, we are here to learn, and we are here to love, and that peace, people would always say it's like the peace that surpasses all understanding, and I never understood that until sitting there, that, over the course of those months and years. We actually had, before this funeral, and as we're planning and people all in our house and everything, we had a gentleman come and fix our back door. And
Oh.
he knew what had happened with William, and he stopped and he looked at me and he told me, he said he lost his son about a year ago. And he told me that he would go to the cemetery every day and just sit there. And he said, and now I go to the cemetery just to be with God. And I thought to myself, how crazy is that? Like, why? I would, how can you say, like, you just go there now but I understand it. I understand it now. And I can appreciate that. Who you were before your child died is completely shifted. You're no longer that person anymore. And trying to get back to that person will never happen, because grief takes over your brain. It takes over your entire body. It makes you feel different in so many different ways. Um, but I understand now, and I can appreciate what he was telling me. But before, my eyes
Mhm.
weren't open enough to see it.
What would you tell someone, like, if they're listening to this and they're thinking, I, I I'm still in that place of anger and fear. How do I get to this place of peace?
I would tell them to just it takes time, and they just have to, everybody is different in how they grieve, and everyone is different in their faith, and everyone is different in, you know, how they perceive everything. There's a lot of angry people out there that don't receive things the way I'm thinking about things. Like, I'm leaning in on my faith, and then there are other people who are
Yeah.
straying away from their faith. And for me, it's hard for
Yeah.
me to try to imagine going through this without any faith, because for me, that faith is knowing that I'm going to see my child again someday, and every morning that I wake up, it is one day closer to being with him. But it's also, it can be hell on earth as you're sitting here trying to
Yeah.
navigate in a world that you don't have your child. And even 5 years later, it's still just as raw when you want to think about and talk about and bring those emotions back. And I tell people, like, you can look at things one of two ways. You can look towards the light, or you can put your head in that hole and go down that rabbit hole and try to dig your way out, and it's just going to be so much harder. um Seeing things in a positive light, no matter what the circumstances are, I feel like is the universe is going to respond more positively, and God is with us through everything. And to everybody, the way they grieve is completely different, and to just be able to allow yourself to sit and be still, truly just sit and be still. Go somewhere you know no one is going to interrupt you. Ground yourself, sit down on the ground again, and just be still,
Yeah.
and give yourself that space to yourself. You don't need any phones, you don't need any electronics, you just need to just sit and ground yourself. Bring yourself back to who you are at your core. And before William, I honestly don't know who I was. Like, I was career driven.
Mm.
Everything was about, how high up on that ladder you can climb, how much money you can make, what the things that you have, making sure you have a good car, a good house, and clothes you wear. It was all materialistic. Once he
Yeah.
died, it changed and shifted everything.
So that opens up just beautifully, because the next question I wanted to ask you and where to go next is, like, at what point did you realize that you wanted to respond to this tragedy in a way to help other people? So I was just thinking, 5 years, it's been 5 years for you. And 5 years after my daughter died, I was still such a mess. It took me 5 years to go to grief counseling. Our circumstances were a little bit different. My daughter was 2. and I was pregnant with our next child at the time. And then we subsequently had 5 more children. So I was in the middle of childbearing and raising, but it took me 5 years to finally give myself permission to get some therapy. And it's taken me this long. It's been 30 years now for me. It's taken
Mhm.
me 30 years to finally be in a space where I can say, I'm ready to start this nonprofit. I'm ready to move forward and really allow my experiences to help other people. And so I'm curious, at what point and how did that realization come that this is what you wanted to do with the 404 Foundation?
So, family friends of ours started a little toy drive the first year William passed away just to give us something to, focus our energy on something positive and giving back.
Mm,
And so we had this toy drive and we collected money, and I was blown away because we collected $10,000. And so I'm like, what are we going to do with this money? So we took the money and we donated it. We took all of William's cousins to the local Walmart and we bought $10,000 worth of toys. And then we turned around and gave it to a local ministry called Grace Works. And Grace Works opens up their doors and provides toys to underprivileged children here within our county. And so we were able to do that. And giving back was it was really good. It didn't take away pain. It didn't, minimize anything, but it did show, the light. There is still some light out there, and gave us a little light in that tunnel that we were in. But then the following year when we did the toy drive, Madeline came home. I had a 9-year-old daughter at that point, and she came home from school and she's sitting at the kitchen table and she was literally pulling her hair out and digging her nails into her skin,
mm,
frustrated over math homework and just
mm,
crying. And I'm like, what is going on with this child? My husband walks in the room and he pulls her outside on the back deck here, and he hugs her and he says to her, just scream, let it out, just let it all out. And I'm watching them through my kitchen window, thinking, this is us for the rest of our life. This is our new normal. This is what we have to to live with now. So I immediately went and got on my computer to look um,
mm,
for different resources that can help me with her, because I was seeing all of these different signs in her that I wasn't aware grief could, manifest that way. Just the insecurity of being alone. She couldn't be alone. She slept with us for almost
mm,
2 years. We're in, Tornado Valley down here in Tennessee, and anytime that the tornado sirens would go off, the girl was just shaking visibly, and she would just
mm,
vomit unexpectedly. And
mm,
me doing the research and trying to find, like, what's going on with her, I found that there was very little resources out there for grieving children, what to expect, how to
mm,
help them cope, what are the signs. And I thought people would ask how she's doing, and she's fine. She's okay. She's alive. She's in school. She's fine. She's breathing. When
mhm,
all in all reality, she wasn't fine at all. She was um pulling away academically, socially. She stopped playing the sport that she once loved. And
mhm,
it brought me to the NACG, which is the National Alliance for Children's Grief, in my search. And I saw that they had a symposium they hold every year. And so I asked my um, board if it was okay if we go to this NACG symposium, and we did. I went out there and I learned so much information, to where I came home from that conference and I was like, this is what we're going to do. The whole reason for creating a 501(c)(3) originally was to give be able to give people who donated a tax write-off for their donation to the toy
mm,
drive. And during
yeah,
that time I realized that this isn't what we're here for. Like, God has put me in this position for a bigger purpose. And that purpose is to fill that gap where those resources are missing. It should not have to take so much time and energy for a bereaved family to find resources to help their surviving children. Um, and that's where the 404 was born. And that is where we decided that this is something greater than just a tax deduction. And the more I learned and the more I got to experience grief through myself, through my husband, through my daughter, I realized like this is a true calling. And I truly believe that this is why God is keeping me here.
That is a beautiful journey that you've been on. Thank you for sharing all that with me. I'm so like it feels not wrong, but it feels uncomfortable to say that I'm grateful for your journey. Um, you're doing so much good. It doesn't take away the pain. It doesn't mean that we wouldn't change everything that started it if we could. But I'm so grateful that you've taken this very, very hard thing and taken advantage of the opportunity to not only allow God to work in your own life and in your own family, but to reach out and strengthen and help and lift and support and accompany so many other people. I've really come to stand on this soapbox that grief doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to be witnessed, needs to be accompanied, um, and it needs to be acknowledged. Those are the things that we can do for people. Grief will never be fixed. It will always be a scar that we have on our hearts. Um, so thank you though for everything that you're doing and for teaching me. You inspire me, and because you follow the inspiration that you're given, and I'm grateful to have that in my life. I'd love to talk a little bit about how we met. So, I'd like to hear your side of that experience, and maybe not just us meeting, but what that whole experience meant for you that whole week that we were in Portland.
Yeah. So this past summer, I had the opportunity to go to the Dougie Center because throughout the growth of our foundation, I never knew exactly how I was going to structure this foundation. I knew that there was a missing resource, and providing resources for families who are going through such profound loss of losing a child. But I didn't know how I wanted to put it into play. Shortly after William died, I was approached by a mother who had lost her child a couple years prior to William, and she invited me into a group of women who also had children who had died at a young age. And I wasn't sure if I was quite ready for that yet, but we did, and the community that they have together, they just make you feel like you're not going crazy. They made me feel like one of the stories, she told me she had her son's Gatorade in her refrigerator still. And this had been 5 years prior. And I thought, okay, so I'm not crazy for having his milk because William was lactose intolerant. He had his own milk in the fridge. So I'm not crazy for still having his milk 3 months later in my refrigerator. So that community that I was invited into is the community that I wanted for these children. And after learning about the Dougie Center at the NACG symposium, I was given the opportunity to go to the Dougie Summer Institute to learn how they operate and how they do their peer groups. And that's where I met you. It was scary going into a city that I've never been into. I've not been to the West Coast before. Um, and to be in Portland, Oregon, it was interesting. The Dougie Center was everything that I want to bring here. Everything. It's that community that I've been looking for my child, a community for her to be in with other children who have lost a family member, such as a mother or a father or a sister or a brother, someone who can relate to her. And so those peer groups, was a big thing for me to go to the Dougie Center and see just exactly how they do it. Um, and to be able to do that with a group of people from all over the country was just, it was heartwarming to know that there are other people out there who have a heart for this mission. Um, and that's where I met Patty. And one of our tasks one day, we were told before we came to bring an item that reminded you of your person. And I went back and forth on this. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it, but I did it anyway. I brought William. William was wearing a sweatshirt at the beginning of July, and middle of July in Tennessee is like 99 degrees, and the humidity is ridiculous. But that boy wore a sweatshirt every day and shorts. In the wintertime, he would wear like, just a t-shirt and pants. Like the kids out here are just silly. But so he was wearing a sweatshirt that day, and I held on to it after the EMS cut it off of him. I keep it with me everywhere. If I travel anywhere, it's in my backpack. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to bring this sweatshirt. And I don't know how well it's going to be received, but it's what I carry with me everywhere. Um, the blood on it had faded. I never washed it. I would sit there and smell it as much as I could, and I know that's morbid, but it was just, it's, I don't know, that sweatshirt, I just can't get rid of it and I can't let go of it. And so when I took it out, as nervous as I was to show this group of people, of strangers, this sweatshirt, I took it out and Patty was sitting next to me, and I'd never talked to Patty before in my life, and the look on her face and the tears in her eyes. And she told me that she wanted to bring her daughters. And I just lost it. I'm like, God knew I needed to bring this today. God, this is what instantly connected me and Patty. Like there was no going back. It was a love I knew that I would carry with me forever, a friendship that would be here forever. And I am so thankful for the Dougie Center and bringing us together, because you have been such a light for me, and I just can't even put into words. It's one of those things that you were talking about, the beauty that comes out of such a tragedy, and it's the people that you meet and the relationships that you build are so meaningful and so powerful, and you don't even have to talk to them every day, but you know that they're there to lean on if you need anything. And I'm thankful for it. I'm thankful for going there, because even if anything, I have made some strong relationships, and yours is one that I will never forget. That moment was everything for me. And if that moment could be so much for me and you, I can only imagine what that would bring to children.
Yeah. And I agree. Like that was such a powerful moment. We kind of broke off from the bigger group and had our smaller group, right? And it was really worrisome for me as well, to come into the space and think, I feel like I have a pretty big rupture that I'm going to share. This is not everybody loses a child, and we didn't know what each other's losses were, and I just think I don't know if anybody's going to understand this. People are going to think I'm weird, whatever, and we really had to just be willing to be vulnerable and take off all the masks and just say, this is what I have and this is who my person was. And um yeah, I felt like our hearts became bonded forever. And it felt like I was being reunited with one of my best friends that I haven't seen for so long. I'm so grateful that you brought his sweatshirt. I I had Lorian's clothes for a long time, and then they got misplaced and we don't have any more. And that is such a hard thing for me. It is sad to me every time I think that I don't have those clothes that she was wearing that day anymore. But I also was filled with so much gratitude that you had that piece of William to hold on to. I didn't feel like jealous at all. I just felt so grateful that you had that piece of him. And I don't know what it was. I think it was just a little God moment. Some one of my friends calls them God winks.
Yes, my husband likes to do that too. Yeah.
Yeah. And, so grateful. And, I haven't come to see you yet, but I'm gonna
Yes.
come down and see you. And, it's gonna be so good. Grateful for the Dougie Center. Hey, sorry to interrupt. This is Patty. Just before we continue, I want to share something briefly. As the founder of The Waiting Place, a nonprofit grief center created to support people as they navigate loss, and as a chaplain, one of the ways that I offer support is through grief companionship, which means I'm simply walking alongside people in their grief journey with compassion, listening, and spiritual care. If you or someone you love could use that kind of support, you can visit thewaitingplacefoundation.org, go to the community tab, and then click on programs and services to learn more. Or you can go directly to the contact page to reach out. It would be my privilege to sit with you in that sacred space and accompany you. So, here I am in just the beginning stages of getting my nonprofit going. Um, and you're going full force. Like you've got peer groups started, you're doing it. Is that right? You've got the peer groups going, and how is
Yeah.
that going? How's it being received in
So
your community?
we started in 2023. We finally became in August of 2023. We finally became a 501c3. Um, And we went through the toy drive, and then 2024, my brother-in-law who sits on the board, he said, "Trish, we gotta do something." He was like, "What's going on?" And I said, "Well, I'm waiting to go to this symposium to get more ideas, but, like, peer groups, I think, is what we're gonna do. I'm just waiting to go to the Dougie Institute so I can have a handle on it."
Mhm.
But then I thought to myself, "No, I'm not gonna wait until June. We're gonna start this now." So I invited a few people that I knew in the community who had lost a child or who have younger children in school who have lost a parent or a sibling. We ended up having about 7 people show up, and it was, it was good. The kids were upstairs. It was a little awkward not knowing how to do it, but the community, everybody came in a little uncomfortable, but the parents
Mhm.
found community in each other downstairs while the kids were all upstairs together. We have a licensed mental health professional who goes up there and facilitates each group to just make sure that they're grieving in a healthy manner. But one of my advisory
Mhm.
board members, she lost her brother when she was in high school, and so she was up there with them, and the connections that everybody made, and the kids were, awkward at first, but they came back downstairs laughing and joking, and we had like a little
Mhm.
ice cream social going on, and everybody left. And since then, we've done one every month. We took a break in November and December. Those are some heavy periods with the holidays coming up, and we're fixing to start them back up. But the community we've built with these children and these families, it's just another extension of our family now. And it's exactly what I wanted. I want it to be organic. I want it to be authentic. I want these kids to just know that when they walk down the hallway and they see each other, that they don't have to be best friends, but they know that they're there for each other. Um, and that if they need anything, that they have each other. It's just been a beautiful, beautiful thing. And then the care packages started. Ideally, the care packages, let's talk about God in full circleness. Before William died, every every May I would host a Mother's Day dinner or breakfast brunch thing for all of the women in my family. And we have this big
Mhm.
long dining room table that seats like 11 or 12 people. And in front of it, I made little boxes for each woman, and I personalized it for my aunt and my grandmother, my mother and my
Mhm.
sisters. My husband looked at me the night before as we are getting them together. He's like, "Maybe we should, like, make an Etsy business or something to where we can do these boxes and, and sell them and, personalize them to whatever." I was sitting there thinking, "Huh, that's a good idea. It's a lot of work, though. I don't know about that." Uh, Fast forward, here we are in the midst of our grief, and I received a package in the mail from a nonprofit here in Franklin called Faithfully Restored, and it was just on a random day. And I open it up, and there's a letter in there, and it's like, "We see you, Tricia. We see the pain you're
Mhm.
going through, and we remember your boy. And please know that you're not alone." And it had a little necklace, And that right there just brought me, like, just so many tears to just know that somebody was thinking of me and did not forget, um, meant so much, and I don't know that they realize how much that simple gesture meant.
How did they know about like, how did you have a connection with these people before?
No, I didn't. I don't know. You can get on their website and make a request. Anyone can do it, like a prayer request, and they
Oh,
will
wow.
send a letter or they will send a gift. And on his anniversary, they sent me flowers, and it's just a beautiful
Oh,
organization. And I thought to myself, care packages. We need to be able to provide these families with the resources that I did not have when going through it with Adeline. So in our care packages, we have this big, beautiful box. And inside of it has all of the printed resources from the National Alliance for Children's Grief, things from the Dougie Center, everything that you would need to help you get your child back. Like, for example, one of the forms in there is a way to advocate for your child as they go back to school. We all know that when you go back to school, everything is like they're focused in on you for a good month, and then everything kind of sloughs off after that, kind of like, with grief. Um,
yep.
and so that's not the time to slough off and acknowledging and recognizing these children, because that's about the time when the grief really sets in for them. That's when behavioral issues and academic issues start to, surface. And here in Tennessee, I'm not sure how it is for other states, but in order to get your child any kind of accommodations here, you have to go through and get a diagnosis of some form in order for them to get on a 504 plan or an IEP. I felt like this is absolutely insane. No parent who is grieving should ever have to go through hoops like this to get the resources that they need. We also put in there like a holiday toolkit, how to get through the holidays. Nobody ever even told me, and I probably should have thought about it, but taking that Christmas tree out, putting those ornaments up, I
Mm,
still haven't. I still don't. I have yet to put an ornament on that tree, but
mm,
it's just something that you don't think about walking into that store and hearing that Christmas song for the very first time and knowing like he's not here. Um Yeah, so all of the different things that we did not have, um, the Dougie Center is a great resource. They have books available to parents, and I provide these books in each care package, 35 ways um, to help a grieving child, or how to help a teen through, losses. It's all specific towards the child, their age, and how their person died. If it was suicide, overdose, a murder, we personalize it to that child. We also add a grief journal
mm,
in there, and we add forced family fun. And forced family fun is what we used to do every Sunday with William and Adeline. We would get up, we'd go to the Lebanese store and get like their fresh bread and all kinds of
mm,
different stuff. And we'd go to the Asian markets. And it was just, we called it forced family fun. So we add a little forced family fun into our packages. And it's something that forces these families to get out, like an AMC gift card. Let them go to the movies together. Get out of that house and just be together. We also provide little medallions, and in the medallion, it's a little QR code that they can put on their person's grave or their marker. And that is
oh,
something that anybody can scan that QR code and it pulls up a website of their person. And in doing that, that family can together create this website and put the pictures of them and their person and their stories that they have of their person, all
mhm,
for everybody to see. So anybody that goes and visits them, they can scan it and hear their voice again. They can see their pictures. And I thought that's just a beautiful thing. A friend had given it to me, and it was just so touching that I thought, no, we're going to put these in every box so every family can have one and work on it together to
yes,
just reminisce about their person and be able to just say and do what they'd like to put in there. So that's been a big hit. We also have like a little comfort item in there. Shortly after William passed away, we had a season of tornadoes out here. And one family, they lost
mm,
their son in the tornadoes, and she
Yes.
has turned around and she has collected animals because he loved stuffed animals. And so she's got a little
Mm.
organization called Asher's Animals. And so she gets all these stuffed animals and they have a little tag on it with a QR code with Asher's Animals on it. And you can scan that QR code and it will bring you to Asher and all of the things that he was about. And she gets to tell her story about Asher. And we are sending these in every care package. So Asher is going all throughout the country with these care packages. But yeah, that has been huge. The care packages have taken off tremendously. We're getting requests from all around the country. I sent one to Alaska. We've sent some to Niagara Falls. It's just amazing at how many people are in need of these. And it's really hard for us to tell them no. So it's March of 2025 when peer group started, and then July of 2025, we started these boxes and I think we sent out 43 boxes from July to the end of November, and they were all over the country. And so, yeah, that's what we're trying to do. Any newly bereaved family that is in our community, we're sending them these resources because it's something that we didn't have for us, and we just want them to feel seen. And the kids in the peer group, they will write a handwritten letter to each of the children who are receiving these boxes to let them know that they're not alone. And that right there is the personal touch that you can't get from anywhere else. And I think that's hard for these little ones to be able to do too. We had one who, yes, I want to write a letter. I want to write a letter. And he took it home and he sat at the kitchen table. He had lost his dad the year before suddenly to cancer and sat at the kitchen table. And his mom's like, "You okay?" And he was like, "I just don't know how to tell them to make this better. Like how can I tell them this?"
Mhm.
And he just lost it. And she called me and she told me about it, and
Oh,
I was so apologetic. I said that was not the intention, and she said, "You don't understand. I've been waiting to see some form of emotion from this
right.
child, and this brought it out. So it just
Wow.
makes me feel relieved to know that there are feelings in there." um, because kids are different. They handle their grief in so many different ways, and it can be loud some days, and it can
Yeah.
be very quiet the majority of the time. We're 5 years out, and my daughter is just now
Yeah.
starting to talk a little bit. It's a community that we're trying to build with this foundation. I feel like is it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And getting these packages into the hands of these families as soon as possible. So when they are going back to school, they know that there are things that they can do to advocate for their child. Like, because for them to have to go back to school and sit in the thick of their grief and have little triggers and not be able to go anywhere, nowhere to, just take a break and pause, or, I can't
Yeah.
do my homework this day, or we as adults, it's hard for us to even get up in the morning. um, and so the struggle for
Yeah.
them, they tend to keep it in and they can act it out in so many different ways. But they too need to know that this is all what they say at the Dougie Center, and I love this and I tell them this all the time. Grief is a human response to a human experience. And that is true. There's not one medication in this world that's going to fix that. There's nothing you can do to make it go away. You just have to, ride that wave and let it out. And then every time it comes, I mean, let it out. Just let it out. It's okay to cry.
Yeah.
It's okay to scream. It's okay to do it however you think you need to do it. But yeah,
Yeah.
these kids are amazing. And, they say that they're resilient and whatnot, but there's so many kids out there who don't have an outlet. And it's crazy to me to know that our country, as advanced as we are, does not have the they were not prepared for dealing with grieving children. Most counselors out there in the schools, they feel ill-equipped. 97% of those teachers out there will tell you that they are not
Yeah.
prepared. They do not know how to handle these children, and that's not fair to our teachers either. I met a
Right.
lovely woman who is a professor at a college out here, but she used to teach in an or a middle school. And one day she had a one of her good students come in and he was completely acting out. And she went
Oh,
to his football coach and said, "So and so is acting up. I do not know what to do." And he looked at her and he said, "Miss Jensen," he's like, "Do you realize today is the 1 year anniversary that he
mm,
walked in on his mother and found her dead in her on the couch?" And she had no idea, and she too is a bereaved mom. She lost her
mm.
son, like, probably 2 years before, and instead of knowing and being aware of what's going on in his life, she matched his energy, and she wasn't there for him like she would have been had she known.
And society makes it so hard, right? Like, we shouldn't, I don't know, there's just this perception that we don't talk about this. We don't share these
Right.
things. We don't wanna be a burden, or we don't wanna make other people feel uncomfortable. And then it just keeps us in that isolated place of dealing with our grief all on our own, and it's never supposed to be that way. I don't think
No.
God intended for us to grieve alone.
No, not at all. I don't No, I don't think he did either. At first, I told you going through this whole grief process, I wanted to be alone. But that community I found with these women, I realized I'm not alone, and these women have been so supportive and instrumental in my growth when it comes to all of this. Just being surrounded by people who have understand and they can see you, they can truly see you, um, has been something that has gotten us through. My husband goes to the dad's group. They meet once a month, and for
Mm,
him, that's his therapy. He's surrounding himself with men who understand,
yeah,
and it's a brotherhood and it's a sisterhood and it's human. We're human
yeah,
experiencing these human experiences together, and not everybody understands it, so we need to make our communities a little bit more grief informed. We
yeah,
need to show our children that grief is a natural process and it's not something you can hide from. It's going to happen to every single one of us, and we need
yeah.
to normalize that experience.
Amen. And I think, a big thing for me is this idea that we can normalize it. And the isolation that comes, and then you find a safe person and a safe space to be able to share. It's so liberating. It's
Hmm.
so freeing. And yet it's still, you only have this little tiny space that you can do that freely. And
Hmm.
I just envision like what it would be like if the whole world was a safe space for us to grieve together in.
Yeah.
How
What would it be?
transformative that would be for society, yeah, and the peace
Yeah,
that would come to the world, like, so much pain and anguish is born out of grief, that we don't know
yeah.
how to process it.
The statistics on childhood bereavement and grief, they are kids who have lost a parent or a sibling are at a much higher or an increased rate of early mortality because of what they're having to go through. And I don't
Yeah,
think that other people realize that we are losing kids to suicide, to drug overdoses, and all of the negative things that can happen to these kids at such a young age because they don't have a way to, release this grief or appropriately, talk about it or feel seen about it. So they're using other methods to cope, and we have
yeah,
got to change the narrative on all of it.
I agree. You talk about how it's, these kids that come and they hit these milestones and they start acting out and they have all these struggles. Um, I would love to talk for a moment about what it looks like for you to be in the position you are. You're creating, you're leading this grief center, but you are still actively grieving. How do you balance that paradox to be in in that space when you're still in the thick of it yourself?
Yeah, that's a that's a good one. It's hard. It's very hard because you shoulder every story that comes in. Everybody is has got a story, and to listen to these little hearts and that's one thing I can't handle is seeing the children cry and know that their hearts are breaking like ours at such a young age and that they have to grow. Like the path that they were going down, everything that they knew before has all just shattered. And every time you hear a story, it just brings you back to yours. And it opens doors that you trying to close or to keep closed to get through the day. Um, but
Yeah.
I've learned that authenticity is everything, and to listen to their stories and to be able to, relate to them. They just need to be heard, and it is very, very hard to do what we're doing. I don't know how, some counselors and stuff do it, listening to these hard stories, or chaplains like you, and especially when you have such a profound loss as a child. It is very difficult. But I think to myself, if you don't do this, who's going to do it? You've already endured the most pain you're ever going to endure here on this side of heaven. You can do this. And that's what gives me strength, is knowing that I can do this and I will do this, because it breaks my heart even more to know that there are people out there walking this journey alone. There are people out there just struggling to survive this. And that community, building that community is everything.
Thank you. How can people find you and support you? As you talked about your care packages that you're doing, your toy drive, all of these things, my brain goes like, these types of things require funding.
Yeah.
If somebody's listening and they're resonating and they want to support you, where do they find you and how do they donate to you and your cause?
They can go to the 404foundation.org, and there is a page up there for giving, and it will show you all of our resources that we have. There are links there for you to be able to go to. It will take you to the Dougie Center, the NACG. At the NACG website, they will take you straight to um, a resource page that you can type in your zip code, and it will bring up every counselor, every resource available to your child right there on their website. Dougie Center's on there, the books are on there, but there is a giving page on there as well. And yes, we operate off of that one toy drive a year, and we're learning that these boxes are expensive, and we're having to re reorganize and shift. We're focusing on making the foundation a little bit more solid, because we're growing at such a fast rate, but the funding is what we need. So we're going to focus and prioritize fundraising this year so we can get more people, work on grants, and get more money in, because these boxes are expensive. There's so many different nonprofits available within the community and around the country that people just are unaware of, and we need to support each
Yeah.
other. We need to collaborate with one another, and it's just yeah, so that's where we are right now. We're going through the growing pains, but this is going to be successful. I feel it already has. The community, the family that we have built within our little peer group is 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 what it is. It's family, and I don't want it to feel like a counseling office. I want it to feel like home. I want it to be authentic. I want it to be real. I want them to feel, my husband always says, if you don't feel at home, then home is where you need to be. And so that's kind of our motto when you walk into our house. One day it's going to fill up and we're going to have too many, or we're going to outgrow this space. And my hope is that we'll be able to have a center like the Dougie Center here in Nashville, or even Judy's house, like here in Nashville, some place for grieving families to just go and be in community with each other, where there is a kitchen if they want to sit and have dinner together one night. There is a space for them, and that space is safe. And that's what we want to provide for them.
You know, as you talk, I just feel so much excitement. And again, it's kind of a weird emotion to connect to grief, right?
Hmm.
But I feel so excited for you for what you're building. And not in a way that like, okay, you are amazing, but not in a way that is like falsely elevating you, right? But that you have the heart to do this work and that you follow this calling that God has placed upon you. And I'm so excited to see these things working. And it, I mean, I've said it multiple times already, but it's inspiring and it's motivating and it's encouraging for me as I'm working towards the same types of things. Um, I think we probably need to close up, which I makes me very sad because I love talking with you and listening to you. Um, but as we close this up, I just want to let the last word be yours. If there's any one thing that you wish that grieving parents could understand, or any one thing that you wish you could share with someone who wants to support grieving parents, what would that be?
To know that you're not alone. And I know it's grief is such a lonely place to be in, and especially if you've lost a child, to just think, everybody out there is just looking at you as a woman or the family who've lost a child. Um, Find those people who uplift you. I have learned how to conserve my energy, and a lot of that is surrounding myself with people with good energy,
Right.
positive energy, and sometimes that's family that you just can't be around sometimes because just the energy is one you're trying to get up and survive every morning. You just need to surround yourself with those positive people like Patty, people who are going to uplift you, who are going to support you, who are going to fill you with the words that you need to hear, that you need to know that this is not home. This is just a temporary place, and we're here to learn and love each other. So learn as much as you can while you're here and love as many people as you can. And this foundation is about love and how he would love first. And I'm always going to come back to William's bracelet and how he would love first. And we're going to lean in on that faith. And we are going to do as much as we can so we can get back up there and we can see our babies again.
Thank you, Tricia. Thank you for joining me today and for sharing all of this. It is so affirming, and it's uplifting to visit with you. So thank
Well,
you.
I always love visiting with you, and I can't wait for you to come down to Nashville,
Yes.
and to just see your face and introduce you to my family so they can
Yeah.
see the beautiful Patty that I keep talking about. But I appreciate you having me on this show. I truly appreciate the opportunity to come on here and just talk about my child and to talk about the
Yeah.
things that we're doing with this foundation and to raise awareness on how we can better support these kids and these grieving families.
Yeah. Thank you for putting your whole heart and soul into this. The world needs more Tricias.
I need more Patties too.
Thank you so much for spending this time with me today on The Grief Between Us. If this episode and the things we talked about resonated with you, I would be so grateful if you shared the podcast with someone else who you think might enjoy listening to it. The more these conversations are shared, the more we can help create spaces where grief is understood rather than avoided. Until next time, take gentle care of your heart.